On the air and streaming on the web since 1996, this is the Cinematic Sound Radio Network.
And welcome to another edition of Cinematic Sound Radio. My name is Eric Woods, the founder and executive producer of this podcast. I'm also a proud member of the International Film Music Critics Association. This podcast is a celebration of everything film, TV, and video game music. There's something in this podcast for everyone, whether you're a film music veteran or a movie music newcomer. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to give us a listen, and I hope you enjoy the program. Of course, I can't forget our patrons who help make this show possible. If you would like to join the Cinematic Sound Radio Podcast Patreon, then please head over to patreon.com/Cinematic Sound Radio. Today's program is a special one. This is the first interview that I have conducted since way back in 2000, when I interviewed Michael Giacchino during the Medal of Honor underground recording sessions in Seattle. Maybe one day I'll unearth that interview for you. Anyway, back in September of this year, I sat down with Cinematic Sound Radio's own Jason Drury, who will be releasing his 50th episode of The Archive on this podcast soon. Jason was visiting Robert Daniels and I, and during one of his last evenings here, he made his way to the Cinematic Sound Radio studios to have a chat about his lifelong fascination with film music, which began at an early age with his discovery of the music of Barry Gray, John Williams, and James Horner, amongst others. We also got to chatting about him turning his passion into broadcasting, first on the internet radio station Caspar in his home of Kent, England, and then joining Cinematic Sound Radio, where he completed his magnum opus, a 3-part documentary on composer James Horner. Afterwards, he created 2 new podcast series for Cinematic Sound Radio called The Archive and Talking Soundtracks. Since 2021, Jason has expanded his influence as a writer and interviewer for Film Score Monthly, engaging with many of today's leading composers. Beyond his broadcasting and journalistic work, he remains an avid moviegoer and cricket enthusiast. As a proud member of the International Film Music Critics Association, Jason continues to champion the world of film music, sharing his insight, enthusiasm, and deep appreciation for the art form with audiences around the world. We also delve into Jason's personal journey, including his experiences with bullying and the lasting impact it had on his confidence. He shares how film music became a vital source of comfort and strength during those difficult years. Ultimately, that passion led him to podcasting, which helped him rebuild his self-belief and connect with others who share his love for the art form. Now, here's part 1 of my chat with Jason, which took place on a warm fall evening in my dimly lit studio on September 25th, 2025. And welcome to the studio, Jason.
Glad to be here. Real pleasure. A long journey here.
How many, this is what is your 3rd year?
This is the 3rd time I'm here. I think the first time was 2018 and it was 2023 and now I'm back here in 2025.
How do you like Canada?
Love Canada. My second home. I feel comfortable here and very useful for me at the moment because I need to relax and be nice and calm. And Canada is a very calming place.
So I didn't bring you here to speak nice about Canada, although that is very nice of you anyway. But you know what? There's something special that's happening in the next few weeks here. We just released Archive episode 49. And so now you're up to 50. And we thought maybe, you know what? Let's have a little chat about your 50 shows. And I mean, you've done 50 archive shows, but I mean...
Well, more than 50 if you count the 2 parts, but I think it actually is the 50th show, technically.
Yeah. And you've done interviews, you've done talking soundtracks, you've done various other things. There's more than 50 shows with Jason's name on it. But this is his show. This is the thing that we brought him on board to do, besides the James Horner special, which we'll get to at some other moment in this interview. But, 50. Why are we talking about 50 shows here?
Well, 50 is an important number for people. It's like half 100, half century. I'm a fan of cricket, and every time people get to 50, everybody applauds. This is a 50th show. Well done, your 50th run. So why not we celebrate the 50th archive show?
So tell me about the archive show. What was its genesis?
Well, it was a way of getting me to speak to film music listeners. I have a problem in the past of self-confidence. And after the Horner show, the reason why my great, lovely partner, Amanda Barrow, did the voiceover was I wasn't confident I would do a good job at doing the voiceover for the Horner show. But Eric saw in me the possibility of doing a show on my own. So I did a little pilot show. I remember doing it and enjoying doing it. Okay, my voice wasn't that great, but there was a possibility, and it was at the time when Eric was not doing many shows. I kind of like stepped into the breach, and ever since then, I've been doing regular archive shows. And for me, it's listening to some of the feedback. It amazes me at times that people actually love what I do, and it gives me one heck of a lot of confidence in doing it. And I would probably do archive shows as long as I can do them, as long as I'm able to do them, because they give me a lot of pleasure, and also I'm glad to say gives a lot of people away from this room a lot of pleasure. And I'm so pleased to be part of Cinematic Sound Radio, and wherever I do, I'll always be part of a Cinematic Sound Radio because of it.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the programme. I'm Jason Drury, coming to you not from Kitchener, Ontario, where this show usually comes from, but today from Ramsgate in Kent, England. I'm sure we are just like Kitchener, Ontario, but with a few more boats and seagulls. So today, Cinematic Sound Radio has a different host. It's coming from a different continent, but it's still Cinematic Sound Radio. Today's show, as I said earlier, is another new release show, this time concentrating on new releases from major soundtrack labels.
We love having you, and especially you talked about their coming in when I was at a time of need, because I was just burnt out. And so, I mean, if you kind of go back in the archives and see, how much time I was off, and I needed somebody to come in because right in front of us right now, you're seeing like a whole pile of CDs that I still have to catalog. But I mean, we were getting just so many CDs, and they were coming in from all the record labels, and I needed somebody to play them on the show, but I just didn't have the time or the energy to do it. So after the James Horner show, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I thought, hey, you know what, Jason, here's an idea. And I think this was also because we were just getting the Tadlow music as well from James Fitzpatrick. And I'm like, I want to play this stuff on the show. I don't have a chance to do it. So would you be interested in taking a look at older film music? Not so much the new stuff, which I can handle, which I was at the time. But hey, would you be interested in doing older releases or new releases of older scores? And you said yes. I mean, let's kind of get into your interest into film music. I mean, what is kind of your range? What's your favorites? Well, how did you get into film music?
Well, I got into film music when I was very young. I remember, I think I've done a show recently with Rob Daniels mentioning this. When I was 5 or 6, I used to watch Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds. For some reason, the music got to me in such a way which I really did, really loved the music. It took me a long time, like 10 years after that, because I realised that I wanted to buy the music. I think it was an occasion I watched on television Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and the film music, John Williams' score, got to me in such a way that, hang on a minute, I'd like to buy some of this stuff. So one day I went into a record shop in Margate, a shop which is no longer there, called a chain called R Price, and looked for an appropriate film score to buy on vinyl. That film score turned out to be Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. That was my first ever film soundtrack release. And I played the damn thing to death. Maybe too much, maybe it didn't help me do my studies of O-level at the time, but I loved the music. And then after getting one soundtrack album, you got to buy more. So I ended up buying, the next album was Jerry Goldsmith's score for Gremlins. Well, some of it, because there was a 2 small EP sets with lots of songs on the first side, and the second side was Goldsmith's score for 20 minutes, which in the end of the day didn't make much sense in terms of the order of the music in the film, but it was a good soundtrack to listen to. And soon after that, I bought a vinyl copy of Rambo First Blood Part 2. A first full Jerry Goldsmith score, which yet again I played to death and almost scratched the LP because it was so good, and I loved playing it. And my soundtrack collection went from there. I transferred over to CD, I think in 1989 with Danny Elfman's Batman. That was my first CD I think I got for Christmas from one of my relatives. And 1,000 odd CDs and digital downloads later, I've got this huge collection of film music and a huge database of film music scores. And my range, well, I'm just a big orchestral guy. I love listening to orchestral music particularly. I'm a huge fan of John Williams, like Eric is, Jerry Goldsmith, James Horner, the what I call the Holy Trinity after one of my 3 favourite footballers, George Best, Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law. If you don't know anything about them, please just look them up, you know what I'm talking about. And I love other composers' work in that ilk, like Robert Falk. I love his music. Michael Kamen, I'm a huge fan of Michael Kamen. And also different styles of music as well, because film music isn't all orchestral music, it's other forms of music as well. The electronic stuff, the jazz elements, and they all come together to create great film music. So if you're a fan of film music, you like a master of a lot of music away from just orchestral music. If it's all orchestral music, it'd be none of the range of film music has. You have to look at other forms of music, and you get even more enjoyment out of the genre. It's a very unique genre. It's just not just one form of music, it's a number of forms of music, and you can get a lot of enjoyment out of it trying to find those forms, and also listening to the way you listen to a soundtrack. Like I always think a complete film score is like if it's in chronological order, it's like playing a round of golf. All the cues are in a certain order, and it make more sense if you want to see the film back on yourself, on your own, and so you can imagine the film listening to the soundtrack album. The best example of which, in my opinion, is Miklos Ross's score for Ben-Hur. You can actually see that film in your head. The same example, The Empire Strikes Back by John Williams. great film scores for me are ones that you can actually see the film playing in your head. You don't need the visuals. The music does it all for you. And these days, there's not much of it, much film scores, many film scores like that. But those are the film scores I like the most.
So before we get into the future of film music, which is something I want to talk to you about, when I asked you to do the archive show, I would hope that you would, and you did, explore kind of all the range of film music, not just, again, music within the era that you grew up with your holy trinity of film composers, which is basically the same as mine, but it was also getting into the golden age and silver age classics as well. So my personal story behind discovering the golden age of film music was through Charles Gerhardt, and that was a few years after I started quote unquote collecting film music. And I really didn't like that type of music because of the recording quality until then I finally heard Gerhardt's albums, and then all of a sudden this music came alive. So was it difficult for you to play the quote unquote older stuff, or was that something that you already enjoyed? And how did you get into that after discovering John Williams, Horner, and Jerry Goldsmith?
Well, there was some classic film scores by these composers in the Silver Age in the 1960s, like John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith did some great scores in the 60s, like Planet of the Apes is one of my all-time favourite film scores. And I'm not only the film stuff in that time. I loved. I think I was lucky. I think one of the first discs I featured on the show was a 4-disc set of a classic TV series, The Wild Wild West. When La La Land released it, I said, I've got to get this CD. It's one of my favourite, it's one of my favourite themes. There should be some great music on there. And I wasn't disappointed, so I had to feature it on my first show. And it was such a great album. It's not just the film scores in the era, the TV shows. I love Irwin Allen stuff, the Lost in Space. Time Tunnel. Land of the Giants. There is a similarity there because a lot of John Williams is related to it, and also the great music of The Voice at the Bottom of the Sea. I am I'm much bigger fan of Irwin Allen films, Irwin Allen stuff, and Barry Gray and Jerry Anderson stuff. I had no problem at all going into the archival, the old releases. Particularly, there's a lot of re-recordings out there. I love Because Russia. Eric Wolfgang Korngold is also a composer I really do enjoy. I remember there was a release of The Seahawk. I think William Strongberg did, which the opening, I played the main title of the prelude. It absolutely blew my head away hearing it. It was such a beautiful recording. I think it was done by the Moscow Symphony. I had no problem with the older stuff. The older stuff is now getting you call it older stuff in the early 2000s now, because, you can, 50 years ago, like 75, and it's still like, to me, there's still modern film scores. So, the further we get in the 21st century, we've got the stuff we enjoy are going to be like archival releases, like First Blood, 1983. We're looking at the 1980s as like over 40 years old now. So, and those are the scores I was growing up with. Even Star Wars is going towards its 50th anniversary. These archival releases are the scores we grew up with. And further down the line, 60 years old for things like Thunderbirds, it blows your mind. Some of the stuff, like, for example, the film score I really do enjoy from 1969, the year of my birth. That was the year of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. The Italian Job by Quincy Jones. Great film scores, and these are nearly 50 or 60 years old now. Those are the archival ones I play, but they are. All the scores are more or less watching them on TV and growing up with these releases. Like Jerry Goldsmith's score for Start at the Motion Picture. That's an archival release of huge magnitude now. Over 46 years old, it's going towards his 50th birthday or 50th anniversary. It's the older stuff, more or less the other stuff that I grew up with, and the ones that the newer composers should be looking at for inspiration, because there's some wonderful, wonderful music in those scores.
Before we start attacking the future of film music and scores that have come out recently, because I want to get your opinion on that, I kind of want to jump into more about why or what do you think makes for good film music. I mean, we're talking about you like orchestral music, you like the way, if a score is able to tell the story and you have the movie in your head, then it's a good score. But is there any more details about what you consider personally as to what good film music or television music or video game music should be?
I think it should have some sort of melody. I'm a fan of John Barry just as much. So even when I'm getting older, I seem to like melody a lot more and not a droll, single note droll that some scores are. I like the work with John Barry and Basil Polidoris. So I do like melody. I do like it when the score has utilizes a full orchestra, like woodwinds as well as brass and strings. I think that's woodwinds is an important part of a score, in my opinion. And I do notice at times that when the woodwinds are not there, or like the flutes and oboes example, the scores lose a little bit of depth to them and seem very, very mono, in my opinion, in tone. I know a lot of composers find it difficult to write for woodwinds, but it's very important to have that in a score, in my opinion. It gives the score feeling and breadth. An example being, of course, the main title of First Blood. It has that beautiful piece of music with the trumpet and also the woodwinds on it. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful piece of music. So that's the sort of score I would enjoy. And there's a lot of composers I listen to. When I hear their stuff, I would know I would like it. For example, I'm a huge fan of Michael Kamen's work. Kamen's work, if for example, his scores like The Three Musketeers or Robin Hood, are like symphonies in themselves because the cues merge into each other. So one complete symphonic work, and they're a joy to listen to. I like some of the modern stuff, some of the more electronic stuff as well. I'm a huge fan of John Carpenter. I love his score for Escape from New York. Some other composers to Austin Wintory, I'm a huge fan. I think everybody's a fan of Austin Wintory from this station, and I am equally up there because some of this stuff is absolutely magnificent. So even the virtual stuff can have that feel and that breadth to its sound that makes it worth listening to. I've heard a lot of virtual stuff which is just as good at times as a full orchestra. Sometimes you can mistake it for a full orchestra as well. There's some real good work out there. So I am generally an orchestral guy, but I would give other forms of film music a chance. And if I like it, I'll play on the show. And I'll make people if I think it's controversial, people may like it. I'll make the listener have their own decision. They may like it, they may not. But it's up to them at the end of the day. But afterwards, they always have a nice piece of music coming. They may like coming next. You never know.
That's fair. So where do you see film music going? The next, let's say 10, 20 years. Are you happy with the progress of music as it's come into the 21st century and beyond?
There's still a number of orchestral composers about. John Williams, I think we've seen the last of, unfortunately, but his legacy remains strong. We've still got Michael Giacchino. We've still got Alan Silvestri. We still have the brilliant Danny Elfman. Those are composers which are still going strong even now. The main concern, like I spoke to recently to Lee Phillips, who brought it up, there's a question of how much AI is going to be involved in film music. Could it be musical score composer conducted by a computer? Is not something I want to see coming up. Because if that's the case, it will lose some of the human identity of the music, which is so important to me. So I'm just hoping that film music still has that personal approach in its soundings. And if composers are influenced by the main old composers of the past, well, what used to be the one composers when aren't they, like the John Barrys and that, so much the better. Because if they listen to these people, they may get some ideas of how is the right way to score films. Like for a good example, Bear McCreary was a pupil of Elmer Bernstein, and he learned a hell of a lot of good stuff. And so he was very influenced by his working with Bernstein, and that's why he's become such an important composer today. I feel that film music should look back at some of the composers and make sure they learn from the past. I would rather see a film score front and centre dominating a film, and there's not many films like that these days. An example of that could be Kentucky's Kingdom by Stuart Hancock, which was featured and did an interview with recently, which is one of the best scores I think I've heard in a number of years, because the producers had the music front and centre, and that to me was it was terrific because the music earned fast. There was a number of occasions, like on TV, like, for example, the Gregson-Williams work on The Gilded Age, where the music there is front and centre. And even I think I was talking to Harry Gregson-Williams on another project, and he mentioned that, and he said, I think we heard it first. I think they like our music. They because it was up there, front and centre, partly as a tool telling the story what's going on screen. So hopefully composers these days, there's less music front and centre in films, but if that, the John Barrys these days would suffer because of their music would be like dialed down or hidden away somewhere. I hope that in these days that film directors, there will be one score probably will come out, and it's like Star Wars, and things would change and things may go back to as they were like in the early 70s and the 80s with film scores being dominant in the mix a lot more than they are now. And I hope that day will come up very soon.
Well, you were talking about when you began this show, or began working with Cinematic Sound Radio, and you said that you've gained confidence, not just behind the mic, but I would say confidence in kind of your everyday life. What was keeping you from having that confidence, getting out there and being yourself? Before this all happened, what was happening with you?
This is a very personal story. I was ridiculed a lot. I probably bullied when I was younger, also bullied at work. My confidence was really low. Found it difficult talking properly. I was very quiet. I used to mumble a lot. So I was, because of my lack of confidence. And I've had people saying, don't talk to him, he talks crap and all that. So I was not really the person people talk to about stuff. My confidence was absolutely really low at a number of occasions. But then I met a number of people. Firstly, my partner, Mandy, she's such a supportive person. She really does give me a hell of a lot of confidence in what I do. You heard her on the James Horner documentary. She did the narration, as I said, and she did an absolutely fantastic job.
Welcome to the first of a series of 3 programmes dedicated to the life and music of James Horner. During this series, you will hear from people who worked with Horner, film music journalists, and just plain movie music fans who love and cherish his work. You will of course also be hearing lots of the music which made James Horner one of the biggest names in movie music now and forever.
And meeting Eric and Rob Daniels, those 2 guys have really helped give me the confidence. My film music love came out for everybody else to see as well. I remember occasions when I think I was on a bus, I think it was 12 or 13, and somebody asked, what favourite music do you have? I think as a joke. And I couldn't dare tell them I was a fan of film music. So I just kept it quiet. But now I'll tell anybody I love film music. I'm a fan of film and TV music, and I won't be ridiculed of it anymore because I think a lot of other people are the same as me. But at the time, I probably would have been bullied and made fun of because of it. But nowadays, that's not the case. I know I'm in my 50s. I'm still very sensitive at times. I do have problems, like sometimes with depression and that. But the thing I go to if I have any problems is film music, and also of course my friends as well who keep an eye on me as well. and particularly Mandy, who's done without her, I would really be a living wreck at times, because she's such an important person in my life, literally my rock. So those are the people who make me the person I am today, and film music is part of it. And I'll go to a film school, just go upstairs, listen to some film music, and it relaxes me again. And the world is not as bad a place as it was beforehand. It is a place I go to. People go to listen to Beatles, anything like that. Or my comfort music is film scores. Maybe a different weird as other people, but that's me. I love our film music. I may put on a bit of John Barry. I may put on Star Trek: The Motion Picture for the umpteenth time, but who cares? I love it. And these guys who write this music, like John Williams, Goldsmith, etc., they help me keep myself in the right attitude to do, not just have a life, but also gives me the encouragement and the incentive to do my shows. It keeps me in the straight and narrow, and keeps my sanity as well, in my opinion, because they are so important to me. And if I have any problems, I always stick on a good film score and enjoy it. And the world seems a much better place afterwards.
Well, you might be surprised to know that I kind of envy you, just due to the fact that you are able to do now all of these interviews with film composers. It's not envious that you get to speak to them. I mean, I've talked to enough film composers in my life. The thing is, you have an ability just to talk to them, to interview them. And that scares me to death. And it's one of the reasons why I've only done one interview in the history of cinematic sound myself. And that was with Michael Giacchino back in 2000, I think. And I don't do interviews very well. And I have a broadcast journalism diploma. So it's something I should be able to do, but I can't do it. So it's something that you can do that I can't do. And that's where I lack confidence. So would you have been able to do these interviews if it wasn't for you breaking out and becoming confident? If you didn't have the podcast, let's say someone said, hey, you get to interview such and such today, would you be able to do it pre-podcasting?
No. Before my podcasts, I wasn't, probably a lot of occasions, I wasn't able to hear my own voice. It was that bad, my inferiority. But once I've heard my voice and found this is not a bad voice and it's a good voice, I have improved immeasurably. This is a thing that really does really amaze me. About 10, 15 years ago, I would have, so if somebody said to me, you're going to be interviewing Christopher Young, he's going to speak to you as an equal, I was saying, I think, what? You must be mad. You must be joking. But we had an interview and he did speak to me as an equal. And I found out these film composers, the vast majority of these film composers are really nice, friendly people. And I still get nervous when the time comes and they do appear on the Zoom or whatever I'm doing the interview on. I still get nervous, even for the short interviews. But when they come up and say hello and how are you and that, suddenly, and we're talking, it's like an old conversation. I think the most important thing to make sure you're in the good frame of mind to do the interview is to make sure you've got plenty of research. You're not going to be, you've got your questions ready, and you're not going to end up saying, oh, I forgot my next question and that's what I want to do now. The questions are there for you to do. You research, if for example, a piece of film music I've been given to talk about, you've listened to the score, you've got things you've heard, you may have seen the film as well, so you can discuss that. I know people will be interested, if it's not clear, what the orchestrations were of the film, how many musicians were involved in it, where it was recording, all the basic stuff. I try to ask the questions I think is important, but I would like to hear the answer to.
Who was your favorite interview?
One of the first interviews I did for Cinematic Sound Radio was with the lovely Debbie Wiseman. And I made the big mistake of not pressing the record button, and I was shattered. I was shattered. And bless her heart, she agreed to do the whole interview again, and I never forgotten that. And I will always support Debbie Wise in everything she does now. Bless her, because she was so kind to me. Other interviews, there's so many great people. I'm going to probably forget a few. Robert Falk was wonderful. He said to me that was the best interview he ever did, because I didn't to just concentrate on his police academy scores. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to talk about his entire career, and police academy was just one part of it, and he respected that. I enjoyed talking to Bruce Broughton. That was a good interview, I thought. Lee Phillips, I've interviewed twice, once for my previous station and now for Cinematic Sound Radio. When I did the Cinematic Sound Radio interview, was more interesting, because I did a lot more since then. Then he did some very interesting stuff. But the best interview, I was just nipping to the top amongst so many other good interviews, and I do sorry if I've missed people out over this interview, because more or less I've enjoyed them all. The guy who just about nips the top spot for me, or nicks the top spot for me, is the one and only Christopher Young. Because the story is that we've done this wonderful interview, like 3-hour interview, and his answers were so concise. They were so good, but I kind of forgot I needed to use the toilet quickly. So, I had one question to go. So I quickly nipped to the toilet, and came back, and then found out he had gone. He had another appointment, another engagement. So I said, "Oh, can you come back, please? I've got one question to do." And I gave him the question. It was the last question of the interview. Like, what was your thing? So, like, what do you want to be remembered for? What you're doing in the future? Usually, it's like a couple of sentences, couple of minutes, or a 10-second, 20-second answer. Usually, what you're doing, what you're doing in the moment, and what do you want to be remembered for? Christopher Young gave me a 15-page essay. It was the best answer I've ever had to a question, and it was fantastic listening to him. And for that, at the moment, he is the best interview I've done so far, amongst many, many good interviews. But that one stands out to me because of how much time and effort he did answering that question. And that really, I admire him for doing that. And hopefully one day I'll be able to talk to him again.
What is your dream interview? Now we're gonna just get John Williams out of the way because he's not talking to any of us. So I mean, besides John Williams, I mean, is there, or have you already done your dream interview, or is there somebody that, man, if you could talk to before you die, who would it be?
There's so many still I would like to talk to. I think hopefully I'm not done yet, and it's just getting started, even though we haven't had many recently on talking soundtracks, but that will return, I assure you, in due time. Stephen Smith, I love talking to. He's got a wonderful voice, and we're hoping to talk to him about his latest book on Bernard Herrmann and Alfred Hitchcock, which I've always started reading, and I think it's wonderful. And he's always open to me to talk to, so he's a very good interviewee. I would like maybe to talk to one day Howard Shaw, if he's available. That'd be wonderful. I know he's he was recently in London, and so he wasn't, he was walking around with a walking stick, but he's doing in good shape and still talking a good talk about film music. And I remember the Silence of the Lambs to Picture, and he talked about how much he loved working with his orchestrator at the time, Homer Dennison, which I thought was very interesting. If I can speak to Alan Silvestri, who's done some great scores over the years, he'd be an interesting subject to talk to. And on the production side, maybe some other recording engineers, so maybe some orchestrators. You'd be interested in how they work and how they collaborate with the composers in general, and how they work. Kind of think of it. A dream interview usually sometimes is your next interview, your next major interview. Okay, I do short interviews as well these days for FSM, but I do like to do the long form interview, and I've had quite a few good ones. And I think in the near future, hopefully, I can get a few more good people as well to talk to me, and that those composers who are working well and doing some great scores, I'm sure I can get all the information out of them to make it a very entertaining show. I've still some major interviews ahead. It's just a case of asking people to talk to me, and hopefully they say yes, and then we'll get them on the show. And sometimes that is very difficult these days due to matters and things beyond our control.
Speaking of Film Score Monthly, FSM, you also do work for them, the premier film music magazine that's been around for forever. So how did you get that gig?
Yes, that's another thing. Film Score Monthly, if somebody said 15 years ago you'd be doing stuff for Film Score Monthly, I said, it's something in your head? There's no way I would do that. Yeah. It came about thanks to, I think I was introduced to them via Tim Burden. He passed on. I said, hey, could you do this interview for this woman? I was Natalie Holt for work on Loki was my first interview. And I thought she would be in the United States, but it turned out she was having a holiday in the Isle of Wight. So it wasn't far away from where I was. So that was very strange. And they seemed to like what I did, because I do the interviews for FSM in a similar way I do my talking soundtracks, but in a condensed form, with interviews with the people talking about the stuff, and the important thing, playing the music, what they're talking about, so people have a listen to the music as well. It's not for me, a theme music interview has two elements: people talking about their music, and you hear the music, not just to hear what they're talking, what they mean, what they're talking about. Also, it promotes the score. At the end of the day, we are here to promote film music, and the important, surely, when people pass on the music, we're not here for our own benefit. We're here for their benefit. People will be listening to this music and thinking, oh, this sounds nice. I may buy this. I may buy digital. I may buy the CD when it comes out. So at the very end of the day, they win out because more people will be wanting to buy their music. Because FSM is a promotional tool for their work. So I did the first interview with Natalie Holt, and then I've had some great people, Amy Doherty, Jeff Rousseau always comes to me, or his agents comes to me to talk about his work. I recently talked to him about Alien Earth, and there's two other scores I've talked to him about. I did an interview once for Cinematic Sound. It went very well, and I think I've talked to him twice now for Film Score Monthly at least. They seem to come to me for Jeff Rousseau. Other composers I've spoken to, I think I've talked to Rachel Portman, Brian Tyler I've spoken to, Benjamin Wolfish, Harry Gregson Williams I've spoken to twice. Great composers, people I've respected who I would never think I would be talking to, but I have talked to them for Film Score Monthly, and every time these people have been so kind and so friendly and making me feel, we end up talking like a conversation happens in interviews, because they're friendly people, and they kind of get that we're here to try and promote their music, and they're very, very pleased to talk about it. I remember one occasion for Henry Jackman for a score. He He was so waxing lyrical, literally singing during the interview. He really was so enthusiastic about this score. I think it was Free Guy or something like that. I may be wrong, but it was one of the scores we talked about. I thought, are you all right? He's absolutely bonkers about it. It was a crazy interview. Yeah, but it's another case that every time I do an interview for Film School Monthly, like talking static interviews, it gives me a real jolt at the end of it. It really, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy talking to these guys, and I take a real pleasure editing the interview to make sure for me, it's important that the interview shows the composer in as good a light as possible and showcases their talent. And if it helps them in the future promoting their music, and may even in the future give them another assignment because of the work they've done on this score, it works out for them. So I always think of all my interviews as not just an interview for the listeners, but also as a promotional tool for the composers to show, this is a chance to promote their music. And the majority of composers take that really well. And the interview becomes more important to them. And I always make sure that they have a copy of it as well, so they can hear it and they're happy with it. And as long as they're happy, and as long as everybody's happy, the more happy I am. And also from Film School Monthly, I must say I get a lot of support from their editor, John Kaplan, who's really supportive, and I know he likes what I do because he keeps getting me to do more stuff. So I must be doing something right.
Before we get into, I want to talk about how we were introduced to each other and what brought you into Cinematic Sound Radio. You've been on actual terrestrial radio a few times since you've been here. Rob Daniels, our friend who works at Visions and Sound at CKWR 98.5 here in Kitchener, he allows you to take over 2 hours of his time and his airways to do some shows. What's the difference between doing that live, all that copy, compared to you working on a podcast? Well,
I try to have a similar script, so I know what I'm going to say. I'm trying to hopefully, if I get a chance, have a rehearsal and try and make sure all the big words are not going to trip me up. Because I'm concerned if I do a live show, I'll get a word and some words will trip me up big time. So I think it's important to get your script correct. And also for a live show, I'll make sure my diction is correct too, because considering my past, I could so easily, if I talk quickly, people will not understand me. This is very important. I'll make sure my diction is correct for those sort of shows, in my opinion. So I would make sure, particularly, I would try and go through it in my head and have that absolutely nailed as much as I can. So I'm not going to, not as if I'm reading something for the first time. And I would try to make it as natural as possible. If I could do a little bit of ad-lib or change, I probably won't fully read what's actually on the page, but use it as a guideline. If I think of something more suitable to at the time, I would change it and just do that and not read. And as long as it's close to the script, I will do that. It's a lot more difficult than doing it on podcasts, because on podcasts you do the script and you can do it 10 times. If the first 9 times it's rubbish, do it again. Just keep doing it until you get it absolutely right. Or when I do my editing, I'll just go through it, and if I think it sounds rubbish, I would quickly do it again to make sure it sounds better for me. Because I could keep it as it is, but if it sounds as though I've kind of mumbled my words a bit, I am such a stickler to make sure that people understand what I say. And I've turned into my worst critic. I think, that's rubbish, I've got to do it again. I will do it again until it sounds absolutely the right sort of diction. It doesn't sound like flat. It's the right sort of diction for that piece of bit of dialogue. The thing is, though, live radio, like podcasting, there's a lot of people who listen to these shows, like over over 1,000 people, maybe even more. And I've always people say, we know you're shy. Why? How can you manage to talk to a microphone, knowing that a lot of people will be listening to it? How I do it is, I think it was some advice that a famous radio man, maybe radio disc jockey in the UK, used to say when somebody said to him, "How many people listen to your show?" And he said, "Just the one talking to on the microphone." And I try and take that to heart. I don't think of the thousands of people who could be listening to the show, or tens of thousands. I think it's just one person. And if I can keep thinking that, I will still have a confidence to do the shows I do live or on podcasts. And that's how I do the shows, thinking I'm talking not to thousands, but to one person. And that's how I do it.
I was going to go into kind of the panic that set in this past weekend on the show, but you know what? I'm going to leave all that kind of behind the scenes stuff. I'll just leave that off the air because that's where it belongs. Because if you listen to the show, you wouldn't know what in the world was happening behind the scenes. But to get to that point of you talking to one person, now tell me about that person when they are offering feedback to you. Do you get feedback? What do you think about it? And what does it feel like to get feedback from your listeners?
Well, I've had a couple of occasions recently which I did get feedback. I was at the soundtrack convention, I think, held at the Barbican, run by Tommy Pearson, and I was listening to John Burlingame talk about his book about television, his new book on TV, which I'm hoping he will talk about the book to us on Cinematic Sound Radio in the near future. And it was a very enjoyable talk about the book. And I was just getting up, and these two people came to me and said, "Are you Jason Drury?" I said, yeah. They said, "Oh, we're from Holland. We listen to your show every week. We recognise your voice. We love your show." And I thought, what? To be honest, I thought it was a wind-up. Nobody does that to me. Nobody says that to me. I thought, and we started talking, and they were genuine fans of the show, and I could not believe it. And at the end of our conversation, one of them actually wanted to take a photograph with me, and I thought, what? This doesn't happen to me. After all these years, this never happens to me. So they took a photograph and said, "Oh, thank you very much." And I thought, wow, I couldn't believe it. And I was meeting Mandy because she was coming on the train to join me to listen to the Silence of the Lambs part of that day. It was being performed live to picture that day. And I told Mandy, and she was so pleased that had that sort of response from people, and she knew how important it was for me, for confidence-wise, for that to happen. And then a couple of months back, I was attending Stephen Smith's talk in Westminster Library about his book on Bernard Herrmann and Alfred Hitchcock. A very fascinating talk. And, I asked a question during that talk if somebody had, I think, and the same thing happened. But there's one guy at the back said, "Are you Jason Drury?" "Yes, I'm listening to your show, and I enjoy your shows." And it again gave me a kick of absolute amazement that I'm getting to my audience and they're enjoying the shows. And I do, even though I don't respond to them at time to times, I do love the responses I get on the Cinematic Sound Radio page. All those do get, I do read those, and the vast majority of them are positive, and that really does give me so much confidence to keep doing the shows. I think, remember one of the earlier shows, I had a thank you from Richard Bellis because I played his score for It, the original It, the TV series version of it, which starred Tim Curry. It was a wonderful score, and he said he enjoyed the suite I did for it, and that really did please me. That even the composers like what I do. Getting these responses really do give me a hell of a lot of confidence, and keeps me going, wanting to do more shows for people to enjoy, and long may that continue.
And that concludes part 1 of my 2-part conversation with film music journalist Jason Drury. In part 2, Jason and I discuss audience feedback, his acclaimed James Horner audio documentary, how he became a permanent host of Cinematic Sound Radio, his future aspirations, and his friendship with the late recording engineer Mike Ross-Trevor. I hope you'll join me for that, and I want to sincerely thank Jason for his openness, not only in sharing his deep passion for film music, but also the personal experiences that have shaped his life. Until next time, take care and happy listening.
Thank you for listening to the Cinematic Sound Radio Podcast. I want to thank Tim Burton for providing his voice for all the bumpers you hear throughout the program, and to David Casina for providing Cinematic Sound Radio's theme music. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at cinematicsound@yahoo.com. You can find us on social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And wherever you're listening to us today, please take a moment right now to leave us a rating and a review of the podcast. You can get a Cinematic Sound Radio t-shirt at our TeePublic store. You can join our Patreon at patreon.com/cinematicsoundradio. And don't forget to check us out on the web at cinematicsound.net.